When Lexus debuted in 1989, they had two cars, the LS and the ES, and those were both built in Japan. But times change, and Lexus, which was originally designed for the North American market, is now a very successful international luxury brand. For the North American market, most of the NX and RX production, almost, I would say 99% of it or so, comes from North America. The plug-in hybrids, the front-wheel drive RX, those still come from Japan. The RZ comes from Japan. The TX is built in Indiana. The GX and LX built in Japan. The IS is Japan. ES is going back to Japan from the Kentucky plant. They still make the ES in Japan, but we don't get any of those ESs right now. Since 2016, they started making the ES in Kentucky. Now, I believe the ES and possibly the NX are also made in India. That's one of the few places outside Japan in the United States that make Lexus models. LS, UX, I could keep going, right? LC500, those are made in Japan. Things are happening fast for Lexus in the Chinese market. The Chinese market was growing extremely fast for Lexus up until 2-3 years ago. And that's when their sales flatlined and maybe even retracted a bit. Now, when I was working for Lexus in 2018 to 2020, there was a huge rise of Lexus in China. I'm like, if this keeps up, it's only a matter of time before Lexus passes the US sales in China. Well, like I said, they kind of flatlined. All the Japanese automakers, actually all the foreign automakers, flatlined. Well, Lexus doesn't want to be a foreign automaker in China. There's too much money. The market's too big there to forfeit that market for them. So they're going to China. Lexus is going to China. Now, you might be saying, Kirk, I don't want my Lexus to be made in China. Here's the thing. Before we conclude that and all the tariffs, all the political things surrounding imported Chinese cars in America, this week I have the Lincoln Nautilus Hybrid. That is made in China, and there's some things on it that I've never seen on a luxury car before or any car before, just because things in China are different. In some ways better, in some ways maybe not so much in terms of car design and car trends, but it's totally different. It's very fascinating, and I cannot wait to bring you those reviews or probably a nighttime review I'll do on the Lincoln Nautilus made in China. All right. So we're going to go over to Nikkei Asia to talk about this plant for Lexus in China, what it means for Lexus, what it means maybe for us here in the United States. So let's get into it. Toyota to make Lexus EVs. Right now, Lexus just has one EV in the United States, the RZ. Got a huge price drop for 2025. It's a good lease car. Outside of that, it's hard to recommend. And, you know, it's a really good city car. All right, watch my front wheel drive review on it. I just did a couple of weeks ago in Lauderdale. This is the thing that really jumped out to me. Not that Lexus was going to China, but that Lexus is going independent into China. At least I've only seen this once before, and that's with Tesla. Tesla, an American automaker, obviously, has independence in China, but Lexus is breaking away from the trend. All the Japanese automakers, all the domestic automakers, I mean the North American ones, all of the like Volkswagen, the European, they all had to have joint ventures with local Chinese automakers when they entered the country. I don't know, what was it, the 80s or something? This is huge. This is massive for Lexus to go the Tesla route and to become completely independent as a Chinese automaker. They're only producing electric cars there. The thing is, it's like the entire supply chain for electric cars is in China. All right. So if Lexus was building Lexus models in Japan with largely Chinese sourced batteries, Panasonic is obviously a Japanese company, but let's say Panasonic still gets a lot of its raw materials through the Chinese supply chain. It's really hard to make money in the Chinese market unless your car is designed, engineered, and made by Chinese parts, Chinese engineering, etc. And this is to take greater control of its business in the world's biggest auto market. This factory will be in Shanghai. Good place to be. They can sell a lot of cars in Shanghai. There's a lot of money in Shanghai. And this should be opening in 2027. The plant mainly will produce Lexus cars for the Chinese market, where the brand sold 180,000 vehicles in 2023. All right. Lexus has sold, I believe, over 200,000 vehicles in China before previous years. Okay. So their volume's going down. They need to do something to protect their market share. In the United States, Lexus typically sells around 300,000 units per year. The Chinese market is bigger. There's potentially more opportunity for growth. The Lexus should be selling more in China just because of how much more people they have in theory. Doesn't mean they have more money. I'm not entirely sure. If you're able to more cheaply produce Lexus models in China instead of importing them from Japan, then they should have a lot of room to grow still. But it says it will mainly produce Lexus cars for the Chinese market. Well, what are we seeing in the Chinese market right now? Well, there's only so many cars that the Chinese market can sell domestically, and then they export them to Southeast Asia. They export them to Europe. They're not really allowed to be exported into North America. I guess Mexico and Central America they can. And also Chinese exports go to South America. Essentially, there could be an entire lineup of Lexus EVs that could be sold in every single market in the world, made in China, but exported to every single market except our own. And that could be tough for me as a Lexus fan, as someone who cares about the brand, to not be able to get an entire lineup of Lexus EVs here in North America because tariffs are too high. That would surely stink. Now, does it mean Lexus couldn't copy and paste and make those in North America? Sure, but what would they cost, right? I don't know. It potentially cost a lot more, right? Since we just don't have the supply chain figured out like China has been investing in for decades. This move comes as other Japanese automakers scale back their presence in China. This is a departure from Toyota's joint approach to the country. Mitsubishi pulled out completely at the end of last year, so about a year ago. I read a report today that Nissan and Honda's joint ventures are going to joint venture themselves. They're going to merge. So we have Honda and Nissan going to merge by the end of next summer, but their joint ventures that they independently have in China supposedly are going to merge as well. So those joint ventures have a better shot at surviving in the Chinese market. It's very fascinating. So Toyota, not Lexus, Toyota has two joint ventures with FAW and GAC. Those two companies produced 1.75 million vehicles in China last year. Lexus vehicles are mainly exported from Japan. I wouldn't be surprised if the TX is exported from the Indiana plant to China as well. Now, while Honda and Nissan saw double-digit drops last year, and I think they're down a lot more this year. I want to say it was like 50% in 2024 so far. Toyota, their sales drop isn't nearly as severe. So Toyota has a better brand image and brand strength in China. So Lexus, therefore, does as well. Lexus is up 3%. Well, was last year. Again, they had a big drop off. I want to say they're selling about 220,000 vehicles there at some point. Now, remember, Lexus wants to be 100% EV in China and the United States and Europe by 2030. All right. Well, they can easily nail down China fully electric if they're producing cars there by 2027. They could export them to many markets, especially Europe, assuming the tariffs wouldn't be too high. Most of our EVs from Lexus, I would assume, would be built in North America, between Canada and the United States, and we would get some still built in Japan. But again, with the tariff situation, it's hard to say what's going to happen. This is interesting. Honda is actually going to have their own dedicated EV plant, but it's still with GAC Honda, so it's not independent, but it is, for cost effectiveness, it's fully EV. Unlike their plant that they're reworking in Ohio, which is going to be EV hybrid and gas cars. Now, Honda has already opened up a dedicated EV plant in Wuhan, and that plant itself has 240,000 vehicle production capacity annual. So it looks like Honda's going to have two separate independent EV plants. And Honda has also closed a gasoline engine factory. Yeah, they're shutting down, dialing back gas production, and going full ham into EVs. Honda is seemingly in China. Makes sense with their brand image and where they want to be by 2040. Honda's to be fully electric by 2040. Lexus also getting aggressive here. I also have some other Lexus news. The LBX is on course to become Lexus's bestseller in Europe. Again, I mentioned having different lineups. Lexus has different lineups throughout the world. In Europe, they get this LBX, this really small Corolla Cross-based crossover. There's also the LBX Morizo. I don't know if that's even out yet, but it probably will be coming and we won't be getting it. But we get the GR Corolla, but I'd rather have the LBX over the GR Corolla. There's also the UX 300e fully electric, and then there's also the LM minivan that I've been talking a lot lately. The LM should be getting a plug-in hybrid soon, just like the Alphard and Velfire stablemate are getting for 2025. But just thought that was interesting that after just 1 year of the LBX in the European market, it's going to be the best-selling Lexus model, outselling the NX, for example, which is the best seller. Maybe even the UX might be one up there as well. But the LBX, beautifully designed on the outside as well as the inside. This interior is nicer than the NX's interior. It looks like a miniature Lexus TX. So very interesting. I wish we had the LBX. I think it's really cute. People would have really appreciated. I mean, Acura is making the ADX entry-level crossover. The ADX is more of a UX fighter, but I would take this over the UX. It looks better. It's better designed inside and out. I know it's smaller, but this to me feels like a Lexus, and we don't get it. So I'm going to end it there. We're probably never, ever, ever, ever going to see any of the Lexus models made in China be imported into the United States. For better, for worse. I mean, Lexus still is trying to figure out what the United States market wants. They're trying to figure out what the United States market is going to mandate. And that's a thing. Like China, there is no transfer of power. There's no transfer of policy. It's just continuous same policy. So it's easy for these automakers in China to start saying, hey, EV is the long-term game here and the near-term game. Let's go EV only, or maybe even plug-in hybrid to some extent, or what you call extended range. If you look at the United States, people still want V8s. People want hybrids. People want battery electric. The government says their own agenda, and that could change every 4 years. The less regulation in America, probably the better because of all the different customer needs and wants. China's different. China said it's whatever the government wants there for the most part, and the people have to go along with it. In the United States, if the U.S. government mandates EVs only, well, people don't like what the government has to say for us most of the time. So we're just a little bit more rebellious against our own government and the policies that they think are best for us. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the comments. I'm cannot wait to see this evolve and see if China's going to have their own products. Are they going to be the same products that we get, but are they just going to be produced over there in China? And then we'll have our own Japan-made or US or Canada-made EVs that are identical, just with different supply chains. I have no idea how this is going to work out, but I'm along for the ride and it makes it interesting for me. Happy holidays for all you guys, and wishing you guys the very, very best. Thank you for your support this year in 2024. It's been a great year for the channel, for me. I'm very, very, very grateful for all of you. So thank you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.